In a movie that showcases superstars Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton, fairy tales reminiscent of childhood, and the feeling that you're watching an adult version of Aladdin, you might be wondering, is 3,000 Years of Longing worth your time? I'm here to tell you that this movie is absolutely worth your time and is one of the year's best. But let's dive deeper. Howdy friends, it's Bryce. Welcome back to the channel. I thank you so much for stopping by. So what is 3,000 Years of Longing all about? Dr. Alithia Binney is attending a conference in Istanbul, Turkey as a mythologist. And while visiting around town, she happens upon a bottle that contains a djinn who's played by Idris Elba. In exchange for his freedom, he offers to grant her 3 wishes. And Alithia, being a scholar in mythology, she has heard many tales about the cautions of granting and caving in to said wishes, so she's not so convinced of the djinn's intentions, which sends them and us into a storytelling adventure in order to end this stalemate. And we've got our movie. What did I enjoy about 3,000 Years of Longing? In short, many things, but I'll start here. This film is many things, including imaginative, creative, unique. I'm kind of interweaving them all into one big pro for a few reasons, some of which are more subtle things like the transitions between scenes. George Miller, as the director of this movie, has a habit of using some really unorthodox ways to get you from place to place. Normally in movies, you might see an instant jump cut, you might see a fade. However, in his case, he kind of slowly fades to black and then slowly fades back into a new spot. And it's not one of those things that makes a huge difference in the movie, but it's enough for you to get captivated by it and for you to notice that something is different about this movie. It's one of the subtle creative ways that he has in order to hold your attention for this hour and 48-minute runtime. And although it can feel a little jarring to the pacing, it was different and I appreciate it nonetheless. Additionally, I really like the combination of the mythology at hand and also the color scheme that gets kind of used. If you look at Idris Elba's hands throughout this movie, you can kind of see they're kind of covered in this gold flakiness with even some red, and the colors kind of change. You can see his trunks are like a sea blue green sort of deal going on. And it's another one of those small things that really makes a big difference in the film because it's really eye-catching. It makes the film feel vibrant and real. And by real, I mean real fantastical, because this movie is filled with a lot of those elements, which also make it a lot of fun. And it really adds to the fairy tale mythology and storytelling mystique that this film is going for and absolutely crushes. And finally, sticking with the imaginative and creative side of things, this movie also has a habit of employing multiple languages throughout its script. Even if only for brief shining moments, I think it was a really great way to keep the audience on their toes. It keeps you from getting lulled to sleep, and you might even learn a couple words or two, which is kind of fun. The multiculturalism of it all just makes it a little bit more fun and adds a certain vibrance to the movie, which in turn gives it its own unique flavors. And additionally, I found this movie to be really captivating from the get-go. From the outset of this movie, even in the eyes of Tilda Swinton's character, we can see some things that we aren't so convinced are real or not, but the way the movie intensely focuses on these visions that she's having, it really grabs your attention. It can also make you feel a little unsettled, and it really allows for the movie to get to a really hot start. It can get everything going really quickly, and you're not really too bored for very long. And it also adds to the mystique of everything that you're kind of seeing on screen. It's a lot of fun. And additionally, I think this movie has a certain brilliance to it that I haven't seen in quite a while. 3,000 Years of Longing is essentially a story being relayed to us as the audience as a fairy tale about another story that's being relayed to us as a fairy tale. I know, Inception, right? It's a fairy tale within a fairy tale, or rather a story within a fairy tale that's being told to us. And honestly, with the art of movie making being really creative storytelling, I thought that was a really interesting reflection of it. I've just never seen a movie that reminded me of parents reading stories to their kid. They just make for really fun and wise cautionary tales. If movie making is the art of storytelling, why not use the movie in order to tell a story about certain characters? The more I think about it, the more I'm just enamored by it all. And finally, this movie does have exceptional storytelling within its script. As I'm kind of listening to the djinn tell his story about how he got into Alithia's hands, I found myself not being able to take my eyes off the screen. And the brilliant part of it is Idris Elba isn't even really on screen, like his face isn't really present as he's telling a lot of these stories, and I still found myself just enamored with everything that he was saying. I think it takes a certain amount of skill in order to pull that off, and Idris Elba really takes that to heart here, whether he's on screen or not. The way that the movie goes about him telling his story, I just think is really brilliant. It's really encapsulating, it's really captivating, and I found myself genuinely invested into all the stories that he was telling about his former masters. It was a lot of fun. And even outside of that, with Alithia telling the story of him telling this story, I thought it was packaged up well nicely too. As she's kind of relaying these stories to us, I'm kind of like, all right, how does this end? Where is this going? I couldn't take my eyes off. I absolutely loved it. Now, what did I not like so much about 3,000 Years of Longing? I have two main problems with this film, one of which is the really bizarre pacing. As I said earlier, the outset of this movie gets going pretty quickly. However, the film does get a little slow and repetitive in the middle parts. As the Jinn is telling the story of his former masters, he starts to get into a few of them, and you kind of get lulled to sleep a little bit because you feel like you're kind of hearing the same thing over and over again. After you hear him tell one or two stories about his former masters and you start to hear the rest, you're kind of like, all right, I've been on this carousel before. Can we move on to something else? You can never really quite tell where you're at in the story. I mean, at one point you're about 2/3 of the way through it, and I kind of wondered, all right, I feel like I'm only a third of the way through this movie, so the last third must be really rapid. But the last third had a habit of also dragging on a little bit too, so really the movie's hour and 48 minutes felt more like 2 hours and 15 minutes. And since I really love this movie, I didn't necessarily have a problem with it, but I just never really quite knew where we were at in the experience, and that was kind of off-putting to me. I mean, I was enamored by the stories, but I couldn't help but feel like there was a lack of progress being made, which kind of lulled me to sleep at a couple of points. Enough for me to actually get up and go to the bathroom really quick. And additionally, I thought this movie had really undersold its most dramatic moments. The major milestones that were eventually reached throughout this movie, I couldn't help but feel like the movie failed to convey how important they were within the context of what was going on. Like, if you weren't paying attention and you saw these big things happening, you might not even know it unless you're really paying attention. It'd be the equivalent of a family member telling you that they just graduated, for example, college, but they just mention it really quick in conversation and say, oh, hey, by the way, I graduated college. Rather than saying, oh my God, I graduated college, let's throw a big party. Like, they make it really evident. However, in the movie, it's more like the really quick and abrupt change. It's just really jarring and off-putting. Like, when these major milestones are happening, I'm thinking, that seems like a major milestone, but the overall tone of the movie isn't reflecting that. It was really strange. So friends, in the end, I'm going to have to give 3,000 Years of Longing a 9 out of 10. I thought it was terrific and absolutely one of the year's best. With a lack of releases coming out this weekend, I actually recommend going and seeing this movie. I think you're in for a good time. You won't be disappointed. The best way I can sum this movie up, picture the adult version of Aladdin. That's exactly what this feels like, and it's honestly pretty great. Thank you so much for watching another movie review. If you like videos just like these, feel free to click these end cards up above or the links down in the description below for your viewing pleasure. Once again, I've been Bryce. This has been the Bankrupt Hippo YouTube channel. Until next time, have a great day.